Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Mail Bag, the mailbag installment over here at AMC Movie News, where all we do is take your mailbag questions that you send in to us. You know, every day, Monday through Friday, Movie Talk, we take a couple mailbag questions, but on the weekends, do nothing but take your mailbag questions. Joining me this week for AMC Mailbag, and by the way, I should introduce myself. My name is Jon Campea. I'm the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News, and joining me today is Mr. Jon Schnepp. Schnepp, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on? I'm glad to be here. Love the mailbag.
Love doing mailbag. So much fun doing mailbag where all we do is take your questions. So look, we're not even going to waste any time. We're just going to dive right into it. Let's start off with question number one. And the first question that comes in today comes to us from Evan Williams, who writes, "Hey guys, love the show. I've been with you since the Man of Steel review." It's amazing how many emails I get from people who say, I first started watching you guys because of that Man of Steel review. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, since the Man of Steel review, and I've been hooked ever since. My question is, do you think that Batman vs. Superman will be like Amazing Spider-Man 2, overcrowding villains, but with heroes? I think the movie will be good without Wonder Woman and Cyborg, Victor, or whatever his name is. When I think about it, it's not a lot of guys, but then again, it is. And if, as John says, they'll probably play a small part, I might be okay with it, but what else do you guys think? Well, I mean, it's a fair question, Evan, but like one of the things that I often say about that is, okay, yeah, they've mentioned Wonder Woman, they've mentioned, you know, Cyborg, Victor, whatever in the film, they've mentioned, you know, the possibility of an Aquaman, you got Batman and Superman, but remember, as of right now, X-Men Days of Future Past has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Everybody who's coming out of that movie is raving about it. And you've got Beast, Wolverine, Professor X, Quicksilver, Magneto, you got Cyclops, you got Iceman, you've got Blink.
Rogue, maybe.
You've got, Rogue, you've got Blink, you've got
Colossus.
Already mentioned Colossus, you got Mystique, you've got Toad, you've got on and on and on and on. It's not about how many characters that are there, because like I say this before, I say this all the time. Every movie's got like 40 characters, right. But some of them have no lines, some of them have one line, some of them have 3 scenes. It's all about how you use them. Were there too many villains in Spider-Man 2? To this day, I say no. The problem was not with there were too many villains. The problem was completely with how they were used. They were used brutally. Yeah. I mean, you could have had 2 quick scenes of Rhino, and they could have been cool. Yeah. But they were misused. So it's not about there being too many guys. With Batman versus Superman, we'll stick to your question. With Batman versus Superman, to me, no, I'm not alarmed at all to hear it. Now, would I add more characters? No. I would rather just be Batman, just be Superman. But, okay, they're introducing Wonder Woman, probably a small part. They're introducing Victor. I doubt we'll even see him as Cyborg. They might be introducing Aquaman. Some people have suggested that. Maybe 1 or 2 other guys. That's fine. It's about how do they handle them. That's the key. And we're going to have to wait to see, you know, how you get. But Schnepp, you know, you're hearing about these characters getting added. Right. Do you feel a sense of fear that they're adding too much to this Batman versus Superman movie?
I don't think so. Now I feel a lot better about hearing that not only is Zack Snyder directing Justice League, but they're shooting both of these films back to back.
Right.
So to me,
which we should say they haven't confirmed yet. Right. Warner Brothers has not confirmed that, but that is the word.
We're all pretty much sure that that's what's happening. They're shooting for 18 months or something. It's an insane shooting schedule. They would have to be shooting 2 movies. I would love to hear that they're shooting 3 movies, but that's just me. So, yeah, I think, you know, it's called Batman versus Superman, or at least that's the working title. We've got the symbol set up there. So that they're peppering it up with some of the other Justice League characters. They're filling out the universe, so to speak. They're reversing the technique of Marvel. Instead of doing standalone movies and then bringing those characters together, they're doing like this full-on assault. Well, we introduced the Man of Steel. Now we're letting you know that Batman has been around, and there's also this whole other world that, you know, we've got an alien from another planet who looks humanoid. That just, if you're going to accept that, and people did, why can't you accept these other things? Right. So I think by using the logic that they're using to introduce Batman in the second Man of Steel movie, and then make a standalone Justice League, I think it's a smart call, and I don't think it's going to be overcrowded. I don't think they're going to use the Amazing Spider-Man technique of like, we need to build out all these franchises. I think they're using it in the smart way. Like, we want to establish the Justice League, and and the Justice League can't just be Batman and Superman.
Yeah.
So we want to get Batman into this new world of Man of Steel, and Zack Snyder's Man of Steel world. They're doing a great job. We love that image of Ben Affleck as the Batman.
Oh my God, yes.
The Batmobile looks badass. So I think it's obviously going to be a little Frank Miller-y taste going on with the Batman. So is it going to be Kingdom Come style Wonder Woman? How are they going to bring in these other heroes? It's going to be exciting, and how they do it, I'm sure it's still going to be mainly a Superman movie. You know, that's how I feel about it.
I think it's going to be a Superman Batman film. I've said this a lot over the past year, and I'm sticking to my guns on this. Doing the route they're going, which is introduce all these smaller characters. And let's face it, for people who are not major comic book fans, Wonder Woman, I know some people get mad at me when I suggest that Wonder Woman is a smaller character, but compared to Batman, Superman, for the most general public, she's a smaller character. Right. Aquaman, whatever. I think it's a great idea. I've always thought they should go the opposite of Marvel. Introduce all these characters in a film with Batman and Superman. Because Batman and Superman will bring the people in. Mm-hmm. Batman and Superman will provide the awesomeness. And then introduce them. Because I'm going to tell you right now, you do an Aquaman movie tomorrow, flop. Why? Because there's still this, and I was one of these people that I thought Aquaman was just a joke, and then Injustice Gods Among Us came out, and a bunch of you guys encouraged me to start reading the New 52 Aquaman, and now I know Aquaman's a great character, but most people, you put out an Aquaman movie, people are going to go, oh, like to do an Entourage, it's going to be a big joke, but...
Or the Super Friends, I'm communicating to dolphins. Yeah.
But you introduce a Injustice Gods Among Us, New 52, badass Aquaman in a movie with Batman and Superman, and you do him right, then you do an Aquaman movie, people will come out to watch it.
Yeah.
Now, everybody always wants to tell me too, well, remember, John, not a lot of people are interested in Iron Man. That's the exception. That was a campaign, that Iron Man campaign, the first one with Jon Favreau and everything, when they brought that footage to Comic-Con, that Comic-Con presentation changed everything. It totally set the tone for the success of Iron Man because it got everybody buzzing, everybody on board. But I'm going to tell you right now, that is the one example that I believe is the exception that proves the rule. Right. I think DC is going in the right direction. Just don't try to play up a big part for Wonder Woman. Don't try to play up a big part for Cyborg. Not yet.
Or Aquaman even.
Aquaman
he's the ruler of 75% of our planet, which is water. He's got a lot to be pissed off about. We're like, stop dumping and you're ruining my, it's like, hey, we got an angry king of the water of the seven seas, You could play up a lot with that.
And you don't want to do that. You do not.
No, not in the Batman versus Superman. You want to piss off Aquaman, but you don't want him being like the main character in Batman versus Superman. We'll see. Maybe Justice League will be like all these characters being brought together. It might not.
Could be.
It might not be like, let's throw in Darkseid and have them have to fight a bunch of aliens like in Avengers. It could just be like all these characters have to get together to save something or do something.
All right, well, let's move on to question number 2. And the second question today comes to us all the way from Ryan Hubeny, who writes, hey, all of AMC crew, or just me and Schnepp, whatever. Love your show. I was wondering, do you by chance think it's possible for a Scooby Doo remake or reboot? Thanks, and keep bringing the filthy. I'll start off with this one. No. I think there was a nostalgia... You had an opportunity for a big nostalgia draw, I think, when those old Scooby-Doo movies came out. By old, I mean the one with Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze and stuff like that. I think, and I think it wasn't Matthew Lillard.
Yeah,
Lillard, right? Yeah. I think you had the opportunity there, and I think that was the right time for it. But they did it, and they had a degree of success, and then some not such success.
Right, and then the second one they ruined it.
Yeah. But so I think the novelty and the nostalgia card's been played for Scooby-Doo. And I think now we have an audience that there's a bad taste. Now, when I think of Scooby-Doo, I have a bad taste in my mouth because of those films, to be quite frank with you. There's no more novelty left for me or nostalgia left for me because they played that card already. And we have a new generation of younger audiences right now that did not grow up with Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
So Hey, look, if Warner Brothers came out tomorrow, and I'm not sure, I think maybe they're with Universal. If Universal came out tomorrow and said, we are going to take another crack at the Scooby Doo thing, and we're going to reboot Scooby Doo, and we're going to try Scooby Doo, I'll be like, okay, good, hey, that's guts, good for you. I'm going to support it. I'm going to go and check it out. But if I was in charge of Universal, no, I wouldn't roll the dice on that. Schnepp, what would you do?
It would take place, where has the mystery van been over the last 20 years? And it starts out in like Colorado, and he's like, I'm so stoned. Scooby snacks. Just like everybody's baked. I mean, you know.
And everybody knows Scooby snacks were made out of hemp.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just call a spade
Shaggy
a spade.
was stoned all the time. He was the stoner. Let's just say that. Let's get it out of the way. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I tend to agree with you, even though I don't want to. I don't want to say, let's just like kill the Scooby-Doo franchise and just say everything that exists is what you should be watching. There's nothing new to watch. Right. Because it is kind of like, if it wasn't for those darn kids, it's like, how many more of those are you going to be able to, you know, basically it's like a remake after a remake after a remake after a remake. Yeah. And they did a really good one with the first Scooby-Doo. I thought it was pretty fun. The second Scooby-Doo went way kind of bonkers. I think it had baby Scooby-Doo in it. He was the villain.
Wasn't there? Oh, wow, was there?
Yeah, I barely remember the second one. You guys can correct us if we're wrong, but I mean, if they did redo it, I mean, you know, you already did one where they're all kind of cartoony looking. It could be kind of fun to make like a very realistic Scooby-Doo. You know what I mean? Where it's just a dog. He doesn't talk. It's maybe like Shaggy's like he's so stoned all the time.
He hallucinates the dog talking to him.
Yeah, he's like, what do you want? The dog's just like looking at him. You want some snacks? You know, like,
what's that, Scooby? You want to solve a crime?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're certifiable.
Right. Or Scooby doesn't talk like Trevor. He talks like, yeah, buddy, let's go get Seth Rogen to play Scooby-Doo. You know what I mean? James Franco is Shaggy. There you go. There's a reboot right there. Slap all those guys in there and have some fun. So
you heard it right here. Jon Schnepp has called it a new Scooby-Doo with Seth Rogen doing the voice of Scooby-Doo and James Franco as Shaggy.
That's right.
Right there. You got a winner. You got a winner. All right. Let's move on to the next question. And the next question today, the third question today, comes to us from somebody who didn't give us their name. By the way, folks, just so you know, if you have a question you send us in, make sure you attach your name to it so we can give you credit for the question. Anyway, we have a question here.
Or you have like a very Western-y type thing, the fan with no name.
The fan with no name. So anyway, No Name writes in, greetings and salutations, AMC Warriors. I love the show and watch your movie talk every day. Thank you so much, No Name. My question to you is Dwayne Johnson's secret character Shazam? He fits all three characteristics Dwayne Johnson said in an interview. Number one, he's complex and has a lot going on. Number two, his powers are on par with Superman. And number three, he's pretty well known. What do you guys think? Love the show and keep up the amazing work. Well, I got to admit, I don't recall Dwayne Johnson actually saying his new character is going to be on par with Superman. I don't remember that part. I'm not saying he didn't say it. I'm just saying I don't recall that part. And let's be honest, nobody in the DC universe, practically in a functional way do they have them on par with Superman? Right. Superman's all that. Now, you can make an argument that in Kingdom Come, I mean, they set it up so that the one being who can actually, you know, go toe-to-toe and fight with Superman is at the time they called him Captain Marvel, but now they just call him Shazam.
Right.
And there's an argument made there. But then if you look in the new kind of DC world, you look at Injustice Gods Among Us and you look at the New 52, Superman takes care of Shazam pretty no problem. But that is interesting. The other interesting thing here is, let's not forget that about 5 years ago, there was going to be a Shazam movie, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was signed on for it, but not as Shazam, as Black Adam,
right?
Which I thought would have been very cool. Yeah. I'm very sad that they're not doing that. Could he be Shazam? It's possible, but here's the reason I'm going to doubt it's Shazam, and maybe it will be Shazam. I'm just saying why I doubt it. The only reason I doubt it is because of this. At least half, it's like a Dr. Banner and the Incredible Hulk. Half the time, it won't be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on screen.
Right.
It's going to be the Billy Batson character, right? And they're not going to have Dwayne Johnson as that. So would you really want to get Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson involved where automatically, right off the top, half the movie, he's not even there? And would Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson want to get involved finally in a big DC property like that for a movie that maybe he'll have 25 minutes of screen time? Yeah. I just don't see that. I would rather see him as a character that it's him. It is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson all the time. Maybe Black Adam. Maybe Lobo. Maybe what are some other options for Dwayne Johnson? If you're president of Warner Brothers, and I come to you, I'm the CEO of Warner Brothers, and come say, Schnepp, our president, we want to get Dwayne Johnson's interested in getting involved with us. What are some practical options with the properties we own that we could plug in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? How would you respond?
Let's say, let's go right to Lobo and say that's a done deal. I think that's a done deal. I mean, a lot, like, he was cast as Black Adam. I think a lot of people, when the Green Lantern movie failed, a lot of people were looking to, hey, why don't we get someone else to play Green Lantern? Why don't we go with the John Stewart Green Lantern? Why don't we go with a bunch of different people's names were thrown around? I think you're right. I mean, him playing the Captain Marvel could be a waste of his character, a waste of him as an actor, right? Because he would only be in half the movie unless they just got rid of Billy Watson or Billy Batson.
Yeah,
Billy Batson. Yeah, I think him playing Lobo would actually re-energize the Lobo character. Like,
for sure.
He would actually bring more flavor to that character than an actor, playing a well-known character, because Lobo is even less well-known than Aquaman. So, yeah, I mean, and everyone's kind of messed around with the idea of him playing Green Lantern. I don't think that's going to happen.
I think it's going to happen. And Lobo, you can make an argument now, but like, I know all the comic nerds. And more power to all of you. I know the comic books are jumping down. No, John, there are several characters in the comic book universe who are just as or more powerful than Superman. Yeah. But in practicality speaking, Superman is the king of all comic book characters. Right. He's the king. But Lobo is somebody who could tussle with Superman.
Yeah.
He's a guy.
Yeah, bring in some kryptonite. And,
But back to your question, I'm going to say this. I'm going to be a happy camper / Campea. If tomorrow Warner Brothers announces Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is going to be Shazam, if they announce that tomorrow, like I said, I'm doubting that's going to happen, but if they do, I'm happy. I'd love to see it. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to the fourth question today, and the fourth question today comes to us from Marco Tullio Zahn. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, Marco. Marco Tullio Zahn writes, "Hey, AMC Movie Talk, I'm a huge fan of Star Trek and was wondering if you guys think it is possible for us to see some next generation stuff in the third installment of the rebooted Star Trek movie franchise. They could even cast Tom Hardy for the role of the younger Captain Jean-Luc Picard, since he was kind of played the same role in Star Trek Nemesis." Well, Marco, I was a huge fan of Star Trek The Next Generation. It is still, of all the Next Generation era stuff, because you had Voyager, you had Deep Space Nine, you had Star Trek Next Generation, and even then they had Star Trek Enterprise, right? Yep. Out of all those Next Generation shows, Star Trek The Next Generation is my favorite. And I like it more than the original Star Trek series, to be honest. I thought it was progressive. It was all the things that the original series was. It was progressive. It pushed the boundaries both socially and all that kind of stuff. I still remember way back when they did this one episode about, they came across this race of creature that had neither male nor female gender. Do you remember this one? And so they come across this race, but what the Enterprise finds out is every once in a while somebody is born with a gender, and that they're attracted to people of other people born with the opposite gender, and they are considered outcasts in their society, and they're arrested and things like that. So progressive in how they dealt with those issues and things like that. And yet it was fun, great character. Captain Picard is still my favorite of all the Star Trek captains. So much great stuff. But no, I think the ship has sailed on the Next Generation stuff in movies. And not to mention, remember, I believe, somebody will give me the actual precise thing, but I believe there's a 70-year gap between the original Star Trek crew. And remember, with this Star Trek crew, it's even a little bit earlier in the timeline than when the original Star Trek was out. But there's roughly about 70 years. So Captain Picard ain't even born yet. Riker ain't born yet. Worf isn't born yet. Maybe you could have a young Dr. Noonien Singh, who's the one who creates Data. Maybe. Right. But I think they've gone to the well too many times in the time travel stuff and multidimensional. And we've had... The Next Generation movies also just started to do this. Sure. You know, they made less and less money, and they had their run, and it was a great run. But I think it's done. So no, I don't think they would go that route, and I don't think it would be a smart route. Anyway, Shep, tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't think you're wrong. I think William Shatner has way more of a chance of being in Star Trek 3 than Picard because they've already introduced Spock. He's been in the first 2. It's from that deviant timeline, so to speak, where it's like all these things change, but here's the dude from the other timeline. So I mean, he's older, so it's like he's the older Spock, and older Spock has also been in the the Star Trek: The Next Generation. Right. So you never know. Would it be a wise thing? No. I think with the new Star Trek, it's the new Star Trek. I think. I mean, we got 7 seasons out of The Next Generation.
Great seasons.
Yeah, great seasons. I love that show.
And one of the best series finales, not just of any sci-fi show, one of the best series finales of any show.
Yeah, satisfying. Like, it wrapped it up.
Even great shows like Seinfeld, Cheers, like some of these great classic shows, their series finales are awful. Yeah. It's hard to do, but Star Trek: The Next Generations was awesome.
Yeah, they did a really good job of wrapping it up. And then on top of that, like Star Trek fans got, I think, 6 seasons of Voyager, which I watched a few of them. I just couldn't connect with it. It just seemed too random.
It was still fun for me because it was Star Trek in that era, but you're right for the most part.
Deep Space Nine, a lot of people told me you got to watch seasons 4 and 5 with the Dominion War.
Once Worf gets involved in the show.
So I do want to check those out, but that once again, that's a whole giant chunk of seasons. I think that's 7 seasons. So I mean, Star Trek has had a really rich universe. Yeah. And it did peter out. It got tiring, and Enterprise, I don't know if you guys watched it. I tried watching. I just at that point in time I just couldn't lock into it. I know it's available. You can watch all of these now on Netflix, every single one. I'm of the fan of the original first 3 seasons and all the movies. Let's not talk about Star Trek 5, but the older Star Trek 5. Now we're talking about Star Trek 3, but this is for the other Star Trek. Yeah, I'd say let the new Star Trek run its course. I'd love for them to try doing more things with the actual new cast that they have instead of bringing back these older guys.
Yeah, I agree.
Who've had their run. So.
All right, let's move on to the 5th question today. And the 5th question today comes to us from Jason Aunprasuth. Jason Aunprasuth? I'm totally butchering that name. My apologies. Anyway, Jason, you write in, "Hey, AMC, I wanted to know what the term, quote-unquote, in talks means. I usually see that said when a director or actor is mentioned for a movie. How much of a percentage does that term guarantee that the director/actor is signed onto the project?" Well, I mean, you guys have heard us use this phrase a lot, that, okay, it has now been reported that Roberto Orci is in talks to direct and stuff like that. Now, there are going to be exceptions to this, but for the most part, 9 times out of 10, when you hear the phrase in talks, what that means is that the studio has done their search. They're finished. They're done their search. They've decided that, we announced 3 or 4 days before Roberto Orci was officially announced as the director. The press release came out, or not the press release, but the report came out that he was now in talks. What that meant was Paramount has decided, okay, Roberto Orci's our guy. Now there are a million things to work out in details that I'm sure his management and his agents worked with the law group over at Paramount, or at it's Paramount, right? Yeah. Over at Paramount to work out the details of the agreement. And trust me, these are complex negotiations. But when you hear the terms, okay, so-and-so is now in talks, that means, okay, the studio has done their search, they're finished, they've picked their guy, and now they're in talks. Now, that doesn't guarantee they're going to be able to come to terms, but 9 times out of 10, they're not going to pick Roberto Orci if they already know he's going to say, I'm only going to direct Star Trek if you guarantee me I can direct the next 17 Star Trek films. Obviously, then they wouldn't even go with him in the first place. If they have an understanding, they've decided, yep, he's the guy to do it. Now let's get into talks. And 9 times out of 10, pretty much. What's your experience been like with stuff like that?
Yeah, it seems pretty much when a studio is going to divulge that information, they're 95% sure. They're going to leave that 5% to hey, let's throw it out. We're comfortable with this. But if we get some kind of crazy feedback coming back at us that's going to ruin our entire franchise, the talks are over. Yeah. So they're leaving a week window or sometimes a month-long window to say no. But they're basically saying yes by saying, we're in talks with this person. We've basically said they're doing it, whatever it is they're doing. But then it's just a out to the wind type of thing. Hey, we've done all our research. You've done your research. We've got the contracts. Let's just see if there's something that's going to break out, and then some horrible thing could come back, that guy murdered my family. What? It's hey, the talks are now over. It's that's pretty extreme. But I mean, I think that's why it's just a gentle way of pushing through with Orci,
yeah.
With Orci, I think they were like, look, he's never directed anything.
Yeah.
But he's done so much stuff as an executive producer. We went through this. Like, he's been around. He's actually wrote the first 2 Star Treks. A ton of Star Trek fans hate Star Trek Into Darkness. I liked it. I really liked it.
Yeah, we both really liked it.
It's a really fun film. I get into arguments with Star Trek fans, and guess what? I'm a Star Trek fan.
Me
so
too.
It's extra irritating for me to, like, somebody be like, look, Schnepp, I'm a Star Trek fan. And I'm always have to be like, maybe you're an extra fanatical Star Trek fan because you can't see why I enjoyed this film. You were really angry about it because it took something away from you. That's a whole other show we could talk about. But anyway, Orci's doing this. It's like a lot of people are like, he's never directed anything. They're giving him $150 million. It's like, well, technically he's been on set for like 7 years doing these other 2 Star Treks. He wrote them. He was on set while they're shooting it. He's a producer on it. It's not that big of a push, I think. You know, it's like he's going to have a lot of friends with him, you know, professional people like storyboarded, produced. It's like he's not alone in this. So he's got a great group of people around him. You know, if anyone else was like, you know, if it was someone else who was unfamiliar with the role or this or that, and they just plucked this guy out of the garbage can, he's going to direct Star Trek 3. Be like, what? Have they lost their minds? But that's not the case. So for them to say in talks, I think they were just gently pushing that through. So,
All right, then let's move on to the final question today. And the final question today has the honor of going to Daniel. And Daniel writes, hey guys, watch your show religiously. Keep up the great work. Thanks so much, Daniel. My question is, since they already announced Apocalypse as the next X-Men movie, don't you think it's a little too quick to bring in a villain such as him into the franchise? I mean, he's Apocalypse, the top bad guy in the X-Men saga. Who do you think could top him? I was maybe thinking Onslaught. What do you do? What do you guys think? Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Well, let me address the first thing you bring up there, Daniel. Do I think it's too soon for them to bring in Apocalypse? They've been doing this franchise for 15 years. 15 years with X-Men 1, 2, and 3, X-Men Origins Wolverine, the other Wolverine film, X-Men First Class. What other X-Men films have there been? Has it just been the 6 of them?
Yeah, and then this will be the 7th.
6 X-Men. Now we're about to get the 7th film. So you're talking about the 8th film in the franchise that they finally bring in Apocalypse. So do I think it is too soon to bring in Apocalypse? No, it's about damn time is more my thing. But they had to wait for technology to catch up and do it right, because Apocalypse is a damn tough one to do. That's not somebody you can just put in a practical suit costume and have man in suit. You can't do that for Apocalypse. So whatever.
We hope.
Yeah. Right. 15 years, 7 films. No, they've waited plenty long. Now, as far as, well, then where do you go next? That's a fair question. But remember, really good story trumps everything else. And you can go into like a new X-Men movie with a bad guy who's not quite as powerful as the last one that you fought. That's going to take the collective efforts of every X-Men man that's probably ever lived to come together and fight him. I mean, because look, Wolverine. In his movie, he's not fighting a bad guy who is more powerful than Magneto,
right?
And which was another villain. So you can go up and down on the power scale. But to go to your question, if you wanted to top it and make the threat even bigger after Apocalypse, do Apocalypse again. I mean, they did it with Star Wars, Darth Vader in Part 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
You could bring him back. Onslaught. For those of you who don't know what Onslaught is. After the events of Age of Apocalypse, they invented this new storyline called Onslaught, where this being of immense, incredible power that kind of looked a little bit like a roided-out Magneto.
Yeah.
Started rampaging around. And as it turns out, what and who Onslaught was actually like a merger of the essences of Professor Xavier and Magneto into one creature, which that's a pretty scary proposition there. But that's who Onslaught is. Yeah, you could go Onslaught. There's some possibilities there you could do. You could do Mr. Sinister.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Sinister is a great underused character.
Mojo.
You could do
the Beyonder.
Oh, God, yeah.
Ouch. Yeah. Sorry, I had to go there.
You if you wanted to start getting Alien, which I hope they don't, but you can get into the Shi'ar Empire and other stuff like that. Lots of ways they could go. Yeah. Lots of still good villains you could revisit and redo and come to, and I think there's lots of places. Anyway, Schnepp, you're in charge over at Fox. How do you handle it? Do you go with more Apocalypse? Do you go with somebody bigger? Does it not have to be somebody bigger? What do you do?
Hey, I think X-Men is a rich universe. So, I mean, they're bringing in Apocalypse for the 8th film. I mean, they might want to like do a total redux for the 9th film, splinter it out. I mean, they could they've been talking about doing X-Force, a whole bunch of other X-Men franchises that they're going to be developing. Yeah. So all these stories are going to be eventually told. I mean, is it too soon to bring in Apocalypse? I don't think so either. I think, yeah, it's about time to hit that. It's like I felt I was very happy they're doing Days of Future Past. We're finally going to see Sentinels done right. Yeah, so it's sort of like there's all these things that like you just simply have to like wait for, and the older you get, the more you realize if they didn't hit it this time, they are eventually going to hit it, but you yourself might have to personally wait 10 to 15 years. Or if you're luckier, like you're 18, I just discovered the X-Men. I'm reading the comics. Yes, here's 7 films that you don't even have to. You don't have to wait even a day. You could watch all 7 of them. It's like
binge watching Lost for the show. I've never watched Lost. Oh, great! Here's all 7 seasons. Go for it.
So, I mean, enjoy that. You know, that's all I can say about that.
Yeah, and think about this too. Okay, who says you do X-Men Apocalypse, right? You could then easily, depending on how you set it up. I mean, you wouldn't be using Legion at this point, but still, you could go X-Men Apocalypse and then X-Men Age of Apocalypse if you wanted to get really ambitious.
Sure.
Granted, doing an X-Men Age of Apocalypse film, you're talking a $250 million film.
Yeah, that's giant.
That's ridiculously huge. But I mean, I'm just saying that's the possibilities out there. How epic would that be? All right, folks. Well, we've crossed the half-hour mark, and we've answered all of our questions. So that will do it for us for this installment of AMC Mailbag. I want to remind you, lots of great films playing in AMC theaters this weekend. You can watch, Neighbors is still playing, which is awesome. A great new film from Disney called $1 Million Arm. I saw this film. Trust me, this is a really good movie. Get on out there and see it. Neighbors, which we reviewed last week.
Really funny.
Really funny film, still in theaters. So all you gotta do is head on over.
And Godzilla.
And did I not say Godzilla? Yeah. No, I didn't say Godzilla. Godzilla's there. So all you gotta do right now is head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater, showtime, and of course, your movie ticket information. And listen, if you want to get your question on the show another time, just email us sometime. Just you see over here at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Maybe your question will get on the show here on AMC Mailbag. Maybe we'll do it during the mailbag segment of AMC Movie Talk. Just come on in and join us sometime. Don't forget, click the thumbs up button if you like this video. Just lets us know that you like what we're doing. Make sure you click on the subscribe button, become a subscriber to our channel. And if you want an audio-only edition of this episode, look in the description of this video and you'll find a link to our iTunes and Stitcher Radio. And we are now putting like most of our shows in that audio stream. So you'll get the daily AMC Movie Talk in that audio stream. You'll get AMC Jedi Council, AMC Mailbag. So we're starting to put a lot of those in there. So subscribe to that channel so you can listen to us on your drive to work. I want to thank, first of all, the dude sitting with me today, sitting right beside me, the one and the only Mr. Jon Schnepp. Schnepp, where can people find you online?
Hey, you guys can find me at Twitter and Instagram at Jon Schnepp. Take care. And if you want to help me out, donate to my Death of Superman documentary, just go to schneppzone.com/SupermanLives and put in a donation and get your name in the final credits as a finishing funder. Thanks.
And you can find me on the various social media channels just at John Campea. So that'll do it for us, guys. My name's John Campea for AMC Movie News. And until next time, bye-bye.